All right. Well, hello, everyone. It is me, Rashi, and we are talking about something that I've been wanting to talk about ever since this video surfaced. So disgusting and just disturbing. I talked about it on air the past, I guess today we aired it for our 5 p.m. and then yesterday we aired it for our 9 p.m. broadcast. For our parent to parent, it was on the Dalai Lama and how there was video that came up of him, and he was basically the 87-year-old asks the boy to kiss him on the lip as he pulls the boy's chin towards him with his lips puckered, and then asks the boy to suck his tongue. We didn't show this whole video on air just because it's so disgusting and don't want to spread anything else like negative there. But what we can learn from it is what we can do with our children, because as a parent of a 3 and 6-year-old, it's kind of like, when do we talk about consent? When do we talk about boundaries? And you look at priests or teachers or coaches or whoever, and you just think, okay, well, we just trust you with our kids. But, the kids need to know themselves. And I'm learning at a younger age about consent, about boundaries, things that you might not have even thought about. So it's something that I'm having a conversation with my kids about. You might want to as well. And I'm so glad because we have Dr. Reena B. Patel, who is a parent psychologist, does a whole bunch of other stuff as well. She just has a book that came out recently that you can buy as well on Amazon, and just a great resource. I spoke with her, and for the story, I spoke with Tejal Patel, who is a parenting coach, and she just talked about, like many parents, how just disturbing this video was. You don't have to be Buddhist or follow him or anything. You just think, oh my goodness, like, how could someone of that stature, a good guy, be this way? So anyway, this is her website. Her name is Reena, and she is here with us today from the West Coast. Dr. Reena Patel, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Rashi, for having me. Yes, from the West Coast here in San Diego.
Yes. And so, first off, I wanted to ask you, and I know we talked about this for the story. What was your reaction, not just as a psychologist, but as a parent yourself?
Yes, as a parent, right away, your red flags trigger, uncomfortable, really frustrating, because that poor child was suffering. It was out of their comfort zone, and they're looking to so many adults to reach in the rescue and help. And like you had mentioned, these are respected individuals in the world, and we expect nothing but for them to be role models and to protect those around them, especially the youngsters. And it was an act of stolen innocence. It was taking that child's innocence away.
Definitely. And, as just parents or just anyone that might not be Buddhist, but just kind of follows him and sees the inspirational quotes and messages. One parent said this to me about how you have to separate what their advice is and their knowledge to the person. And so it's still something that we can, whatever he has said, whatever inspirational things, that's different. If that speaks to you, that's different. But from the person who is the Dalai Lama. And really, it is just, you don't know until something has surfaced about someone's intentions or what they're doing. And it's so imperative that we can't always be around our children, that our children know what to do in that case. So we've talked about so many things. I think that it was so interesting that you said as young as 2 years old, you can start teaching your child about consent. So tell me about how you go about doing that, telling them they're the boss of their own bodies.
It's a great question, and we have to remember that children, you need to speak them at their developmental level, and never over divulge information that they don't know yet, but start with them. And children are curious at such a young age, and so yes, at the age of 2, they're observing, they're seeing, like, how is it that when I go to the bathroom, when I go potty, it's different. For example, if you have a son, that my mom, when she goes to the bathroom, and we are so comfortable as family units to do so much in public, right?
Hmm.
We don't even allow our children to have the opportunity for privacy. So instead of, sing song or calling, using baby terms to call up, private areas of the parts of their body, we need to really state it as a matter of fact. These are your breasts. That is your bottom. That is, instead, just to start to teach them that there's no shame in any of that. And then, secondly, it's important to teach them that they can actually have their own privacy. You start to learn when children start to turn away, wanting to change their clothes. They're even young ones in pull-ups will start to want to
Right.
go behind a couch to have their own privacy. Those are all behaviors and signs that are letting you, as an adult, know, as a parent, know that your child's ready to have that type of privacy. So it's important to ask for consent. And
Hmm.
may I help you change? Would you like to go to the bathroom by yourself? I'll stand right outside the door. Even taking showers as adults, it's really important to make sure your child isn't there watching. You want to have that mutual reciprocity in terms of consent as well.
Yeah, it's hard, I mean, I've done it where the kids were younger, and it's like I just put them there and I took a shower real quick, and it's kind of like you have to try to do the best you can. And I understand that some parents may run into a problem where they are just trying to change one kid and then do it something else, and in the process maybe not thinking about privacy or the consent or the boundaries or anything like that. Like, a child may be like telling the grandmother, no, I don't want to hug, I don't want to do this. So kind of, I guess, how important is it to kind of have your radar on for those type of elements?
So one of the things that I do when I talk about consent is use the acronym ACT. And the first thing in ACT and A in ACT is acknowledge. Acknowledge what's going on and allow a child to ask for help when they need it. Don't jump in. And so it's understandable. We're all busy parents, and sometimes you have multiple children at home, and you're trying to do things really quickly for them, even though they want their independence. Change them real quickly, or take quick showers and just for their own safety. And that's
Hmm.
understandable. The point is to give them choices, to allow them to be in control, not only be aware that you realize that you're taking a shower. I have to take a quick shower, but definitely put your towel over, yourself. And so you're not completely out there, and allow them to do that too. I think that's really important. When a child shows behaviors and shows signs that they want privacy, it's important to acknowledge that, be aware of that, and reinforce that. And that's a great time to teach consent, Rashi. That's a great time to talk about what permission means,
Hmm.
respecting boundaries, that you are the boss of your own body. And it's great. Use that teachable moment, like I said, as young as they're ready,
Hmm.
and don't assume that nothing's happened. I think it's really important for families to know too, to talk about it. So acknowledge the A, C, talk about consent, and T, talk about the stigma. Make sure, check in with them. Did something happen? I use the senses to help validate when a child is sharing and talking, that I see what you're telling me. I hear that someone may have done this at school. It's really important to check in with them as well. It's never a one and done conversation.
Definitely. And I think that's great. The acronym ACT, like you said, we have it up there. Also, this is so important. Telling someone not to touch you is not rude. Um, Actually, after having the conversation with you and some other parents, I started doing that with my son, because I'm always like, I want to hug, I want to kiss, I want, but you have to respect their space too, because I'm not always wanting to hug, I'm not always wanting a kiss and stuff like that. So, with grandparents, with friends, all of that, um, how important is it for you to be able to like convey to your child that saying no is okay?
It's really important because this is a sensitive subject. When you think about family, when you think about our grandparents,
Mhm.
automatically, I want a hug, come towards me. And children, they obey, they comply, right? Because that's what they're raised to do.
Mhm.
But we have to kind of break that cycle, and again, ask for permission. And looking back, maybe growing up, you may have had that family member who someone may say, an aunt or uncle, who says, oh, they're just like that. And so
Mhm.
no longer should we be accepting of this discomfort that is out of the norm and not appropriate. And so it's important to start to embed the language at home and letting your child know that it's okay to say no. And
Mhm.
some examples you can help your child do is and practice it, embed it, make it part of your routine. For example, if you're going to have your child read a book, ask them if you can sit next to them. That's having them give you permission, right?
Mhm.
Would it be okay if I sit next to you when you read your book? Do you want me to help you put your jacket on? Oftentimes, as parents, what do we do with little ones? We just change them, right? Not
Mhm.
giving them the opportunity to choose. And it's more than just independence. It's again, someone else is touching their body. And yes, we're the caretakers, but it's important to start modeling those behaviors. So when they're out in the real world at school or with a sitter or with someone else, they're comfortable saying no.
Definitely. And I just want to say that my parents and maybe my grandparents and great grandparents, they might possibly say, well, we didn't do any of that, we just changed you, we just did this, we just did that, and you turned out fine and you're fine, so you don't need to be this way, or maybe be a little bit critical, or some people who have different parenting techniques. And I would just say that things are so different now, and just as a parent, instilling that by modeling that behavior is so important. And I think that um, some fellow parents, that are kind of just new to the parenting thing, might feel like they're being pushed away in being this way or parenting this way, because that's not how they parented, or that's not how they're used to. So, with permission, with all the things that you're saying, I personally am going to implement them, and I think it's only best if other parents possibly do the same, just so you're not in a situation like that. Because I think that the little boy was scared and he was sad. And, when he saw the Dalai Lama, that's just obviously perception. But if he had those tools, maybe that might not have happened, just saying. But I wanted to throw that out there because I know that everyone's been brought up differently. So,
Well, I mean,
you
and
know,
Rocky, the other thing is we're not talking, you and I, we're not talking about eliminating any type of affection. We're not
right.
talking about creating this space where parents can't connect with their child, by no means. In
Hmm.
fact, a child oftentimes will come to a parent seeking the affection. They don't need to ask us, for permission. Why? Because we want them.
Hmm.
But I think it's important this is a great way to just teach and practice boundaries in the home environment, because they are at school. How should they act amongst their peers? What is that safety bubble? And again, it's just giving them choices and alternatives, because not every child will be comfortable with that kind of kinesthetic and sensory input all the time. It's like being startled from the back. When someone comes from behind you and tries to bear hug you, it's not being prepared or aware of that. And so it's always important to come from in the front and say, oh, may I give you a hug?
Right.
And other ways to connect, right? Instead of a hug, teach those replacement behaviors. Can I give you a high five? Or let's say, you have a family member who is so affectionate, and the child is not as comfortable, and you can observe and see that. Teach your child to ask for something in place of that. Oh, can I give you a fist pump instead? Or can I give you
Hmm.
2 high fives? And I think that still forms a connection, and it solidifies a relationship.
Definitely. And I wanted to show everyone this, which is consult and healthy boundaries. And we've talked about a couple of those things, but I did want to mention about identifying the safe adults and safe word. What do you mean by that?
Just like when we teach children stranger danger for pickups, or if someone other than a parent comes and picks you up, what is that safety word? Create that as well for healthy boundaries and consent, because the ones closest who has the consent or the privilege or the opportunity to have your child, you want to make sure that your child feels comfortable. So I think it's important for that safe adult to be something similar as someone who carries a safe word. And so have your child know who they can go to when something uncomfortable happens, something out of the normal. They were touched, potentially sexually assaulted or abused. I mean, I'm going to use real terms here because we're not just talking about young children, we're talking about teens as well, that they have a safe place to go to, that they can, in confidence, without judgment, be able to disclose. And it may not always be a parent. Maybe the individual or the adolescent doesn't feel comfortable telling their parent. And so identify who that is, have the conversation. And then also for the little ones, create that safety word. If your child is in a situation where things are happening of discomfort and being touched, like, ask them, who are they? What is that safe word? And those are the ones who should be protecting the child.
Definitely. And so what are some examples of like a safe word like you're talking about? Like, is it something that they say or something like that they like or identify? Like what's an example?
So you could look at it two ways. Safe word, for example, when children get picked up, it could be something, a name of their animal, their pet, right? For example, if a child is feeling uncomfortable, let's say, and you're at a party and they are in distance proximity from, let's say, a parent, and they're being maybe touched, they're feeling uncomfortable. There's someone in their personal space, and they don't feel comfortable verbalizing or leaving, because oftentimes kids in that video, the child froze, right? It's a natural instinct. It's fight or flight, of course, but some of that response is just freezing because you're in shock. And so it's saying, oh, it feels really hot in here, for example, is a phrase you can do. Or I have to go to the bathroom, even though the child may not have to go to the bathroom. You create the language that you want your child to and that gives a cue in to those safe adults who were supposed to be protecting them, to come in and help them out of that environment.
And what advice would you give to parents who are just now kind of starting off with this, with parenting and trying to figure out the whole, I mean, let me just tell you personally, with me being in the news, it's like now with school shootings or, something like that happening, or, bad things happening, and trying to learn the lessons from them and trying to impart wisdom to your child so that, one thing is obviously you don't want to hide anything from them, but then giving them age appropriate information. So my question to you is, what advice would you give parents as they move forward with everything going on in this crazy world we live in?
We live in a digital world, and fortunately, unfortunately, we're exposed to so much media, but also so much misinformation as well, right? So it's important to limit your own time in front, as much as you can, in front of the screen, in front of the phone, and be cognizant of what your children are witnessing around you. They may be in the other room playing, or you think they're reading a book, but the television is on, or you're talking on the phone with someone. Be mindful of the information that they're getting, especially because at every age, children process information differently. And when children are young, they're more concrete learners. And so what you tell them, they are going to take literally. And as they get older, they understand the abstract understanding of some of this information. Not everything is so extreme. So I think it's important as first-time parents, new parents, who have been parenting forever. It's evolving. It's definitely that endurance test. But to know that it's okay to make mistakes, I think that is so important. But show your children that you're making these mistakes and how you're learning from them. It's a conversation. And so when you sit down and have this initial talk with your child about consent, you may not get it the way you want it to go the first time, but it's okay, because it's an open-ended, flexible dialogue that you come back to, and your child will think about things and come back and say, oh, can you tell me about this a little more, or I don't understand, or maybe you have to come back with examples. And so it really it's evolving, it's ongoing. Check into resources. I mean, I have my website, my social media. I'm always posting things about current events that
Mhm.
affect parenting, and look to those evidence-based practices that are work, and that's all that you have to do, and just give yourself that grace as parents, because it's a tough job.
It really is. And I encourage everyone to, if you have Instagram, follow her. It's Reena B Patel. And it's just such a great page to follow. Just, I mean, you post all kinds of things. And I was just going through there, and it's like, I hope that you come back and talk to us about different topics, because there's so many things out there that parents are concerned about or can learn from. So, Dr. Patel, I want to thank you for being here this evening. What is it for you? Yeah, it's evening for you. 5,
Yes.
almost 5. Yes, over almost 5. So thank you so much. And I hope we do speak again.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. I enjoyed my time here.
all right, awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us for this edition of Parent to Parent. There we go. And if you have any questions, please list them in the comments below. And until next Tuesday, we'll see you then.